You stand on the edge of something, though you may not yet know it. The wind seems still and the sky gives no sign, but there is a voice, quiet, insistent, not heard with your ears, but with the deep chamber of your being, that says, "Open it, now." It does not shout. God rarely does. He does not break down doors, but he knocks, firmly, patiently, and waits to be let in. And when he says, "This will happen to you right now," he is not playing with time like a conjurer. He is calling you into a moment that was always meant to be yours. We spend much of our lives waiting for a sign, for proof, for the right conditions, for confirmation. We pretend that wisdom is in hesitation, that discernment always wears the robes of delay. But the truth is more uncomfortable. There are moments that require no further counsel. They do not come with footnotes or warm-up music. They come dressed as interruptions, a chance meeting, a sudden thought, a quiet sense of urgency that you try to explain away but cannot. You are told to open something, now, and somewhere inside you, you already know what it is. To be chosen is not a badge, it is a summons. It is not a decoration, but a door. And the door opens into territory that may frighten you, because it is unfamiliar. We like being spectators of the sacred. It is a far more comfortable thing to admire from a distance than to be drafted into the story ourselves. But God does not merely write books, He writes people into the plot. When He chooses you, it is not for a spectacle, but for sacrifice, not because you are ready, but because He is. You may wonder if this moment, this right now, can truly carry the weight of divine meaning. After all, it looks so ordinary. There's nothing glowing in the sky. The clouds don't part. The dog still barks. The bills still sit unpaid. The coffee's still lukewarm. But that is where you must learn to see. God does not decorate His moments with neon signs. He hides His commands in plain sight. The letter He tells you to open may be a conversation you've been avoiding, a decision you've delayed, a truth you've buried under convenience. It may look small, but heaven often wraps its messages in the wrinkled paper of the mundane. Do not think that delay is harmless. You may tell yourself you are just waiting for more certainty, more signs. But the unopened letter burns silently. It knows your name. The words inside it do not grow stale. They grow urgent, and you know this. When God says this will happen to you right now, He is not threatening, He is not coercing, He is inviting. It is the invitation of a lifetime, and it is written with a pen that has traced your soul since before the stars were born. You are not merely being asked to accept a truth, you are being asked to become it. So open it. Open what you've hidden. Say yes to what you fear. Respond not because you are certain, but because you are known. There is no safer place to leap than into the arms of the one who called you. Not later, now. There is a curious thing that happens when you sense you are being called. Not in the loud theatrical way we often imagine, but in a manner far more unsettling, quiet, specific, inescapable. It feels like a message not delivered through trumpet blasts, but in the sudden stillness of the room, in the way the air shifts. You are told, not asked, that something is coming, that this will happen to you, and it will happen now. It is not a threat. It is not even a promise in the way we understand promises. It is a truth being unveiled, the kind of truth that doesn't wait for your calendar to clear or your courage to swell. Most people expect God to speak in the style of kings and politicians, with fanfare and announcements, grand speeches and sweeping gestures. But when God speaks, He often does so in the tone of someone who already knows you intimately and sees no need for theatrics. It is a voice that seems to know you better than you know yourself, and it doesn't argue, it doesn't persuade, it simply states and waits. Open it, the voice says. The it is rarely explained. That's part of the challenge. The divine message isn't a contract written in legible ink. It's more like a weight placed on your soul that you cannot shake. You might be tempted to delay, to tell yourself that later will be better, safer, that tomorrow will bring more clarity or more faith. But the voice speaks in present tense. This will happen to you right now. Not when you've prepared, not when you've prayed more, not when you feel holy or heroic. Now. Because the sacred is always wrapped in the ordinary moment, and eternity always knocks on the door of the present. There is no waiting room outside of divine purpose, only thresholds, and the moment you feel the summons is the moment you are standing on one. But here is the greater mystery. To be chosen is not to be flattered, but to be forged. It is to be called into something that will not always feel glorious. Sometimes it will feel like loss, sometimes like madness, sometimes like standing alone in the dark while others walk by untroubled. You are not called because you are strong. You are called so that, in your weakness, something greater may be revealed. When God chooses someone, He does not choose them for ease. He chooses them for transformation, not just of themselves, but of others through them. The weight of the calling may scare you. That is right. If it didn't, it would not be worth obeying, but it is not yours to carry alone. The voice that calls you is the same voice that walked on water and calmed storms. It does not abandon those it summons, yet it does not always explain itself either. The letter you are asked to open is sealed with the unknown, but it bears your name. You know this. You've known it for longer than you've admitted. So many of us walk through life waiting for some grand revelation, not realizing the miracle has already arrived and is now waiting for our response. Not tomorrow. Now. This will happen to you right now, says the voice. It could be your healing, your calling, your surrender, your obedience. But whatever it is here, and it is yours. God does not waste words. When He says, this will happen, it is not speculation, it is certainty. And when He says to you, it is not vague, it is personal. The moment may be small, even invisible to others, but the invitation is vast, eternal, and all that is required of you is this: open it. Even trembling hands can break a seal, even fearful hearts can say yes. There is a sacred discomfort that settles over a person when they are truly being called. Not called to attention like in a classroom, or to action like in a crisis, but called by the voice that formed the stars and whispers still into human hearts. This voice rarely comes with volume. It does not force itself into your ears. It waits behind your ribs. It speaks not to the air around you, but to something much deeper. The place inside where you suspect eternity has been hiding all along. This will happen to you, it says, right now. And something within you knows it is not exaggeration, it is not metaphor. It is a moment wrapped in quiet urgency, and it has your name on it. Yet the curious thing is how often we resist it. The very thing we secretly long for, a sign, a message, a divine moment, is also the thing we shrink from when it finally arrives. We look for excuses wrapped in reason. We say we need more time, more clarity, more evidence. But truthfully, what we need is more courage. Not the loud, heroic kind. The courage to believe that God's voice doesn't always come with thunder, and that what happens to us now may not look like a miracle, but may be one anyway. the miracle of being known, the miracle of being chosen. To be chosen by God is to be seen, not for your success, not for your strength, but for your potential to surrender. Divine calling is not about qualifications. It is about willingness. It is about yielding to a will that does not flatter, but refines. When God says something will happen to you, the chosen ones of history rarely lived easy lives. They lived true ones, and truth, like gold, is formed under pressure and fire. But how does one open what they cannot see? This is the mystery. The letter God asks you to open is not always literal. It might be a hidden decision, a long-ignored nudge, a burden that refuses to be buried. It might be a conversation, an act of forgiveness, a leap into the unknown. And yes, it may be terrifying, but if it is from God, it will also be unmistakably alive. It will throb with holy weight, like something breathing behind a locked door. The longer you ignore it, the more restless it becomes, not out of anger, but out of longing. God does not give assignments without offering His presence, but He often withholds the full picture. What He offers instead is an invitation to trust the author more than the explanation. When He says open it, He is inviting you to begin, not to understand everything, not to map the future, but to take the first step into the sacred unknown. Divine timing often feels abrupt to those of us who are addicted to control, but He is never early, never late. And when He says now, He means it is the exact moment grace is ready to meet you. So you must decide. The moment is not waiting for you to become perfect. It is waiting for you to become willing. You can walk away, many do, but know this, the unopened letter will not disappear. It will sit in the shadows of your days. It will become the question behind your questions, the ache beneath your ambitions. It will call to you, not in anger, but in patience, in love, always love. Because the one who calls you has already gone ahead of you. The path is prepared. The door is unlocked. All that remains is for you to reach out, yes, even with shaking hands, and open it. There is a moment, perhaps subtle, perhaps jarring, when something within you stirs and refuses to be silenced. You do not hear a sound, but you sense it. It is not a thought, but it enters your mind. It says, "This will happen to you right now." Not a suggestion, not a distant prophecy, a quiet certainty that seems to come from outside and yet is intimately known inside. Most people dismiss this moment, brushing it away like a breeze, but some, perhaps you, pause. You feel the weight of it, the strange mixture of peace and urgency, and you know it is not a mistake. You are being spoken to, personally, purposely. What follows is not comfort, but conflict. The inner kind, the kind where your heart begins to beat faster and your mind starts making excuses. Not yet, not me, not now. But the voice does not negotiate. It does not bully. It simply is. It waits. Like a letter sealed with truth, sitting in your hands unopened. And deep down you know what it contains. Not the details, but the direction. It is not telling you everything, but it is telling you enough. This is your moment to say yes, even if you don't understand why. We often expect divine moments to look like grand events, flashing lights, sacred music, a swelling of certainty. But God rarely works in spectacle. He hides eternity inside time, the infinite inside the immediate. The call of God comes not when the world quiets down, but often when your life is loud and messy. The timing seems wrong, the circumstances feel imperfect, and yet that is precisely when He speaks, because He is not looking for your convenience, but your attention. And if you have heard the call, even faintly, it means He already has it. To be chosen is not to be favored in the way we imagine. It is not a spiritual spotlight or a divine endorsement of your plans. It is a holy interruption, a redirection. It is as if God is saying, I see you not just as you are, but as you could become if you followed me through this door. And that is what the unopened thing in your life represents, a door. You don't know what lies beyond it, but you know it is not empty. It is charged with something real. It demands response, not analysis, a decision, not delay. There is always a risk in saying yes, and yet somehow there is a greater risk in refusing. Because the unopened invitation does not disappear. It lingers. It becomes the question that never leaves you alone. You may try to bury it under busyness or drown it in distraction, but it will resurface. Why? Because it is not just a task, it is part of you, part of who you are meant to become. The voice that called you shaped your soul before you were born, and it speaks now, not to command you, but to awaken you. So this is your moment. Not in some far-off, more ideal version of your life. Right here, right now, with all your fears and flaws and unanswered questions. God does not ask you to be ready. He asks you to be willing. The letter in your hand may not come with instructions, but it comes with a promise that if you open it, if you obey the call, you will find Him there, not just at the end of the journey, but in every step of it. The one who calls you does not call you alone. He walks with you. He strengthens you. He carries you when you fall. And so the voice speaks again, not louder, but clearer, not impatient, but insistent. This will happen to you right now, not because you are perfect, but because you are chosen. And because the time to open what He has placed before you is not tomorrow, not when you feel brave, not when you're certain. But now, there is a sacred moment, often unmarked by the world, when the invisible becomes undeniable. Something within you shifts. It's not loud, not dramatic, no lightning, no crowds, but a quiet impression forms. This will happen to you. Right now. It's not a question, it's not an idea to consider, it is a truth, wrapped in mystery, sealed in urgency. The voice that speaks it doesn't shout, it doesn't need to. It speaks with the calm authority of one who has always known you, and though the message may be unclear, the pull is not. You have heard something eternal whisper into time, and it has chosen to whisper into yours. We often assume divine calling begins with clarity, with vision, with knowledge of the destination, but it rarely does. In truth, it often begins with disorientation, a holy disruption, the kind of stirring that doesn't explain itself, only insists, open it. You do not yet know what it is. A path, a purpose, a conversation long avoided, but you do know what it feels like something buried is rising, like something dormant is waking up. And your excuses, though clever, begin to sound more like fear dressed as logic. What we forget is that divine timing does not wait for ideal conditions. It does not require that your life be tidy or your heart fearless. It does not ask whether you're confident, only whether you're listening. When He says right now, it may feel inconvenient, it may feel unsafe, but that is because we have been trained to trust comfort more than calling. God's voice doesn't consult your calendar. He speaks from eternity, and He calls you into it, not tomorrow, but now, not because it's easy, but because it's time. To be chosen is never merely about privilege. It is always about purpose. The world teaches us to chase recognition, but God calls us into responsibility. He chooses not the strongest, but the willing, not the most certain, but the most surrendered. You are not chosen because you are impressive, you are chosen because He has decided to write His will through your life in a way only you can carry. That is both an honor and a weight, and though it may scare you, it is precisely that fear that proves this calling is real. The easy paths never require courage. And so you come to a threshold, not of opportunity in the worldly sense, but of obedience. You hold the unopened letter in your spirit. It waits, patient but persistent. Its silence speaks, its stillness calls. Open it. Open the conversation. Open the wound. Open the step into the unknown. You think delay buys you time, but in truth, it only deepens the ache. Because when God writes a word for you, it will not fade until it is fulfilled. You are not being offered a plan, you are being invited into a partnership. And the only way forward is through. Yes. The voice that calls you now is not unfamiliar. It has echoed in moments you dismissed. It has whispered in the weariness, in the longing, in the restless wondering that kept you awake. You thought you were waiting on a sign, but the sign has already come. It is this moment, this word, this pull. This will happen to you right now. You are not late. You are not disqualified. You are not alone. The letter has been addressed to you from the beginning, and its contents? They will only be revealed on the other side of your obedience. Open it. Now.